Hello, 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 America. We've
Good
got the
morning.
American Awakening Squad from around the country bringing you signs of life. We've got some exciting stuff today. Not only do we have Hawaii representing the Pacific Ocean, we've got the Californian bringing us a little music today. We got Nashville, as always, Florida, up here in Boston. And
We're all over.
what's that, Jeff?
We're all over today. I like
We're
that.
all over today. We're bringing a little West Coast and a little Western Coast with you.
Exactly.
First, we kick it off with Josh Jacob, our house worship band. And Josh, what do you have for us, friend?
Yeah. During times like these, I love songs about longing, and so this song's called "The Longing" by All Sons and Daughters. So hope you like it. These things unseen won't cripple me. I place my hope in you. This deep desire, this longing, I'm falling into you. Oh, love isn't always was a longing placed inside my heart to know you and be known by you. Love isn't always was a longing placed inside my heart to know you and be known by you. Ooh, this place, this time won't satisfy. My soul was made for you. My eyes behold was beautiful, and I belong to you. Oh, love isn't always was a longing placed inside my heart to know you and be known by you. And love isn't always was a longing placed inside my heart to know you and be known by you. Oh, love that isn't always was a longing place inside my heart to know you and be known by you. Oh, love isn't always was a longing place inside my heart to know you and be known by you. Ooh, yeah. How I long, how I long, how I long for you.
That's so good.
How I
A
love
whole
that
different vibe this morning. Loved that.
So regular listeners and viewers know that we had David Leonard of All Sons and Daughters last Thursday. So this is the 1 week anniversary shout out to David and All Sons and Daughters. So thanks so much, Josh. Really appreciate that. Now, a word for everybody. We make music a big deal on this show because we believe that, especially in times of difficulty, nothing speaks to the soul the way music does. We start every day with Josh We end every day either with Josh and our house worship crew, or we bring in special folks like we are today with Sara and Sean Watkins, which we're bringing in for California today. So it's something which is a major priority for us, because we think there's something special about just getting a chance to hear the longings of the heart, and to relate to the crazy world that we're living in, but understanding God's presence through the medium of music. So thanks, Josh, for bringing us in that way. Thanks so much. Really appreciate that. So regular listeners and viewers know, and those who were on the show yesterday know, that we missed one major thing. Yesterday, we had a great show. It was like unbelievable show. It was a perfect show, as a certain president would say, perfect show. Except for one thing. We missed a goat running through San Jose clip. And so we cannot go any further in today's show without showing that clip. Am I right, Marisa?
I think so. Yes.
Thank you.
I would agree.
Thank you for that affirmation. And with that, Marina, breaking in for the... There we go. So,
that's amazing. What's the story behind that? Why was there so many in a suburban street?
It's in San Jose. It was in downtown San Jose.
That's amazing. But why? Did they just like get released or what?
Well, no, it's like there was, I guess they're keeping the goats on somewhere kind of nearby, because things had burned down. So they were using the goats to kind of clear the land or something, but they're usually penned in, but they figured out a way around it. The goats chewed their way through. Yeah. So
for those viewers or listeners from around the world, we just want you to understand that we don't normally have goats running around, hundreds and hundreds of goats running around our major U.S. streets. So for us anyway, this is really
during a pandemic, goats in San Jose.
Exactly. And so one of the things we said yesterday, and I think it's fitting to echo today if you didn't catch yesterday's, is that there's something about the soul seeing, if you got a chance to go back to the clip and watch it for a while, and those goats are just going, and you're like, as Marisa said yesterday, it was like, go goats.
Yeah, I think the key to the goat watching experience is to watch it over and over and over again. Loop it for yourselves, people, and then you'll get in the zone. You'll get in the goat zone, and you'll be able to feel their drive for freedom.
The drive for freedom. The drive for freedom, which a lot of us are feeling right now. The drive for pandemic freedom. All right, Joel, there's no way to segue off of the goats to you, but I'm going to do my best to just give it to you, and good luck.
Oh, I've got a segue. Little known fact, my grandparents had a 300 head goat farm growing up. I spent a lot of time with goats, so it especially does my soul well because I know goats quite well.
Wow. That is a little known fact. We did not rehearse that, guys.
If you ever need to milk a goat, pretty much any kind of goat care, you look me up. I'll help you out. Hey guys, bring in your daily dose today, which is your little bit of hope and light and life, and grounded in some truth and grounded in God's truth. So I live near the Gulf of Mexico in Florida, and from time to time I go fishing. And one time I was out with my friend who I go with a lot. He has a small boat, and we knew this exact spot where we could go get some really nice speckled trout. We've caught them there before. And so we go to the spot and we found it, and we toss in the anchor because we knew what our goal was. We knew where to find the fish, and we wanted to make sure that we didn't drift too far from that spot. The anchor hit the bottom, it held, and on that day we caught our limit, which is a great thing. I think this is really important for us right now. We, perhaps more than any time in maybe the last 50 years, especially as Americans right now, and especially since you're listening or watching online, we need a place where we are anchored that is the right place for the right reasons, seeking the right ends. The waves are blowing, they're wobbly, they're from every direction, it seems. It's uncertain. It's hard on a day-to-day basis to discern truth from opinion and facts from deception or just ignorance. We get all these mixed messages from the very top of our government all the way down, and from the grassroots up. It's just a really kind of disconcerting and disconnected time in a lot of ways. And in the midst of all this chaos and noise, we tend to look for simplicity. We want everything to settle down into simple categories. And so we tend to settle into a tribe or a certain narrative, whether that narrative is right or wrong, because it helps us make sense of our days. And that's understandable, but it's not healthy. We need to listen to some words from God when he talks about, especially these words from Paul in Hebrews chapter 6. He talks about this hope that we have as an anchor for our soul. And he did this so that we could have hope. And he gives us this, and we're promised that we can have it. And so I want to just encourage us today as we have something that we can kind of take away, that we don't just toss our anchors carelessly into a void. We don't just go fishing out into a random spot. We go to a place where we know that there is truth. And we throw our anchor over, not in fear, but in great joy, with hope, because it is an anchor that is hope. And we know that it's going to sink and it's going to hit bottom, and it's not going to be long, and it's going to hit the bottom, which is God's anchoring love through Jesus for us. Friends, he loves us so much. We need to anchor our souls in him, not in our political parties, not in a political leader, not in our tribes, not in our social media feed, not in our denomination, not in our race, not in our career. Those anchors will not ultimately hold. But the anchor we have for our souls is firm and secure, and you can take that to the bank. That's your daily dose. Back to you, John.
That's good. That is good. That's the second time I've heard that today, and then I read it this morning too. So in the daily dose. So the more times I get that, the better off I am. Thanks so much, Joel. Really appreciate that. Jeff Bethke, how is it in Hawaii this morning, friend?
It's good. It's early like usual, but it's good. If we're still doing this show when daylight savings happens or whatever, we don't do daylight savings, so it'll be 1 hour less, because then it's like a 5-hour time zone difference, I think, instead of a 6. But I'm loving it. I just love being with you guys. It's such a treat. And Joel, that was awesome. So good. Simple thought for today, and that is coming from fascinatingly one of the longest, I was going to say the longest longitudinal study, which is true, but I guess the biggest, because that's a mouthful. Or no, it is true. One of the longest longitudinal studies ever. That's the only way I can think to say it. That's been conducted in the U.S. is a really, really fascinating one. It goes all the way back to, I think it got started in 1938, and it's still going to this day with some of the participants in their 90s. And I think they entered, obviously very young. And what the entire study showed, it was a researcher and a psychologist at Harvard, and he wanted to do a study over almost an enormous long period of time, tracing what's the most important thing in someone's life. At the end of this, with hundreds of people in the study, can you find any verifiable data on, man, these people kind of found what they wanted, or they had happiness and peace and love and all these different things. And it was essentially, that's what it was, is can I study longitudinally, is that the right word? Happiness. And what's fascinating, I don't think anyone will be surprised by this, but it is cool that actually some research backs it up. What he found after looking at the data was that one of the biggest things that he found, no matter someone's socioeconomic status once they got to the end of their life, no matter certain other things that were happening in their life, the biggest factor in their happiness was had they found love. Now he doesn't mean romantic, but he means platonic. He basically just means had they found deep, meaningful, rich human relationships. And if they had, they were profoundly happy no matter what was going on in their life. And this quote I think is really fascinating that I loved. I want to read. He says there's basically 2 pillars that they found of happiness in this enormous 80-year study. And that one is love. To find happiness, you need love. And the second thing is finding a way of coping with life that does not push any love away. So I thought that was a really cool way to put it, that you need love, but people also who have the systems to make sure that we're not naturally kind of resisting or pushing away human connection and richness in relationships is just as important. And if you put those 2 things together, you actually will find the happiness you're looking for, sometimes in all the wrong things, in all the places that you think will do that, but it's just a mirage. It's just alluring you for the wrong reasons. So that's something to chew on for today, is your life pointing towards building strong relationships that are full of love? Because if you constantly chip away at that day after day after day, you will find happiness. And that's what we're all looking for. So back to you guys.
Can I do a follow-on on that, Jeff?
I've considered it, and yes.
Very kind.
So gracious.
Oh, he is.
Of course.
He's such a good guy. Well, it's 6:30 in the morning, and he's granting me my wishes.
That's right. Calvin disagreed. See ya.
So he bounced Calvin. So the question I have is, you set up the study really well, and you set up the findings well. But just to press in on that point of you said something about the duality of it's not only this pursuing love, but also not pushing away love? Or you said something like that, and I may be paraphrasing the wrong way. Do you know what I'm trying to pick up on?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So there was an exact quote from the researcher, and he said that the two pillars of happiness, one is love, the other is finding a way of coping with life that does not push love away. That's the exact quote. And when you put those together, it is fascinating because I think we don't think about it like that. We think we just, pursuing relationships is good, but sometimes we almost self-sabotage and we actually put systems in place that are pushing things away without realizing it. And so I like how he put that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I work with a group at Harvard now called the Program in Human Flourishing, and a lot of their findings are channeled through the book that we're coming out with, American Awakening: 8 Principles to Restore the Soul of America. And the Program in Human Flourishing, reaches for those type of socio-psychological observations to help channel into our understanding what the science says on a lot of these principles we've long believed. Because a lot of folks over a lot of millennia have told us something about love being important, right? And then to see science backing it up is somehow like it, but somehow it's interestingly validating at the same time. I don't know. I know, Jeff, you like to look to the sciences for that. And how do you feel when you see something out there that's affirming of an instinct you have? How do you respond?
Yeah, well, I think it's always a fun confirmation that God was way ahead of his time. There's so much wisdom in the scriptures that I think a lot of times it actually plays at the idea of human progress. I think we are progressing this narrative forward into some future that has been non-existent, but it's actually we're playing catch up to what God is already trying to bring into the world, and He's been on this track for thousands of years, even making it a revelation to us about what love is, why it's necessary, why it's highly important. 1 Corinthians 13, the obviously model and picture of Jesus. And so, we're actually playing catch up in the God who is bringing us into the biggest possibility.
Wow. That is something. That really is something to chew on. And I wish I could pursue that a lot more today, but we got so much show left to go. We got to push on.
Yes, I'm stoked though. More goes.
To Calvin and our regular feature of So Wow, that's happening. My goodness, what's going on in this crazy Corona day?
Absolutely. All right. Well, hey, good afternoon, everyone. Again, to our friends in the U.S. and all around the world, it's awesome to be with you guys today. And yeah, like every show, just want to bring you a few headlines of what is going on out in the world. So yesterday, the Wisconsin Supreme Court struck down Governor Tony Evers' decision to extend a statewide stay-at-home order, limiting Evers' ability to make statewide rules during emergencies such as a global pandemic. Now, the justices wrote that the court was not challenging the governor's power to declare emergencies, but in the case of a pandemic, which lasts month after month, the governor cannot rely on emergency powers indefinitely. So like most other governors across the country, Evers issued a stay-at-home order in March with an April 24th end date. But Evers' administration decided to extend the order until May 26th as coronavirus cases and deaths in Wisconsin continued to rise, with nearly 11,000 confirmed infections and 421 deaths related to the virus. Also, as states are fighting to open up, so are national parks. Yellowstone National Park will begin to reopen on a limited basis on May 18th. The park, which covers over 3,000 square miles in Wyoming, Montana, and Idaho, has been closed to visitors since March 24th. Now, all national parks, including Grand Canyon National Park and Zion National Park, have also recently announced plans to reopen. Lastly, venture capitalist and former pharmaceutical head Moncef Slaoui will now head Operation Warp Speed. It's the White House initiative tasked with finding and distributing a coronavirus vaccine. Now, Operation Warp Speed launched 2 weeks ago with the goal of making 100 million doses of coronavirus vaccine available by November, and 200 million doses by December, and 300 million doses by January. Now, Dr. Anthony Fauci has said that January might be a possible date, but acknowledged that it would be a remarkable achievement. So there you have it, a few headlines of what is going on out there. Now I'm going to pass it over to Marisa to introduce our discussion topic of the day.
Thank you, Calvin. Thank you. Yeah, as we are pushing ahead for a vaccine and some kind of normalcy in our world, UN health experts today warned that a global mental illness crisis is looming, and that as millions worldwide are surrounded by, of course, the death and disease and abuse and isolation and poverty and anxiety, all those things brought on by corona, people are struggling. And so presenting this report and some policy guidance was Devorah Castell, who's the director of the WHO, or the World Health Organization. She heads up their mental health department, and she said, the well-being of whole societies have been severely impacted by this crisis. They're a priority to be addressed urgently, and basically these issues should be front and center for every country out there. And the report highlighted a bunch of groups, especially the vulnerable, who need to be watched out for, including children, of course, we all know, young people who are isolated from friends and from school, and of course, healthcare workers that are on the front lines and are dealing with sort of death and turmoil every day. And not only did they focus on those sort of obvious ones, but again, they pointed back to sort of all the rest of us, those of us who have been financially impacted by corona, those who unfortunately are struggling with domestic violence because of everything going on in our homes, and everybody who is in acute impoverishment. So those who are really dealing with poverty. Now, again, I throw all that out there. We know those are these really big, almost overwhelming things. And a lot of times we don't even know where to start when we get to issues that are that big. But I know that, when we can hear that kind of stuff, a lot of times we tune out or we just do whatever it is that we need to do that we're used to doing to cope. But I'm wondering if today, we can reframe the conversation around all this bad news, and instead of maybe either like shutting down or kind of dismissing it, if we can change our entry point into the conversation, maybe we can use it, all of us, to kind of connect with a sense of personal purpose. So, guys, if you will work with me, I'm wondering if you could sort of step back, you could close your eyes, all of you out there too, feel free to do it, join us. And sort of envision a society that's actually healthy and whole. What would that look like? What are some things that you might see when you think about a healthy and a whole society? And for you personally, as you're sort of imagining that, what are some things that really matter to you that you see? What are things in life and society that are worth saving? And what are some things that might be worth spending your life trying to achieve? So guys, our world, folks are hurting. But what do we see? What's healthy? What's whole? Pastor Joel, you start us off?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what I saw, literally with my eyes closed, was people hugging, which is so strange right now, right? Because we're not supposed to do that. But there's just something about that intimacy, the human connection that you don't, unless you're like kind of strange, you don't just hug people who you don't want to have a connection with or already have a connection with, right? And so that's like a tangible thing for me. But in terms of like the question at large, I think it has to go back to Jeff's word. I mean, it was just so good. Just the human connection that is real, that is deep, and that is, I think, able to tackle the tough stuff. Again, back to Jeff's word, because I think you've got to be able to draw closer together in times of crisis, personal and societal, as opposed to being pushed apart. So I think, really learning to rely on one another. And in order to do that, you got to share it. You got to say this is what I got going on. So I think that's a hallmark of a society that's healthy, is that you're able to say to at least someone or a couple someone's, hey, here's how I'm really hurting. Here's how I'm struggling. Here's what I need emotionally, psychologically, spiritually right now.
That's good. That's good. Calvin, what do you think?
All right. I think, when I closed my eyes, I saw the cross, right? When I say the cross, I see the vertical as well as the horizontal. So I think horizontally, I see... Honestly, right now, I see restored trust. I see restored trust, especially between our political leadership and institutional and organizational leadership with people, especially that our political leadership, again, that relationship has been broken right? And I think to see that restored, as well as some of the gaps that feed into that broken trust, which is whether they're social or economic, whatever those are, but to see that restored. But again, I know that's only really possible if the vertical is restored, right? I mean, how do we even love each other this way? How do we even know how to do this well? Whether it's politically, economically, or socially, if this isn't made right first. And so again, I think if there's any hope of doing this well, right, in this like kind of perfect world, I think it'd be us knowing who we are vertically and this relationship being restored.
That's good. That's good. I'm gonna chime in, JK, before I call on you. Since you're always like, Marissa, you throw these things out. What are you thinking? So I'm gonna chime in. Yeah, I mean, sort of piggybacking off of that, Calvin, you were talking about, again, just sort of knowing who we are. And for me, when I close my eyes, I think one of the things that pains me the most, that I would love to see, that, I think is a earmark of a healthy society, is one where people have a sense of sort of who they are and who they can be, and there are opportunities for them to run free and become who they're meant to be. And that is something, again, we're seeing stats. I read today about, Melissa Etheridge, the singer. She's dealing with her son who passed of opioid crisis. We're seeing people who are losing their lives, giving over their lives, surrendering hope, because it doesn't mean it for everybody, but a lot of people are not sort of grounded in sort of who they are and who they can be, and if there is any kind of purpose for them here. And so, when you come across folks that are they just have no clue, they're just not grounded at all, that hurts my heart, because I know that has to hurt the heart of God who created us with purpose, on purpose, to know each other and to know him and to be, contributing to the lives of people around us, edifying people. I mean, there's so much here, and there's purpose for everybody who hit the lottery and actually made it onto planet Earth. And so, yeah, that for me is something I know I'm willing to give my life for. And we're working on this here with American Awakening. A lot of us, these themes have been sort of churning in our hearts forever. But yeah, I believe the kind of world that's healthy is one where people can run on and achieve and become the very beings that they were created to be. So that's something that really touches me, that I'm really passionate about. But JK, I shared.
Thank you for sharing. And the reason I pressed you, Marissa, is not because of protocol. The reason I pressed you is because I always want to hear what you have to say first, because
exactly.
I consider you the wisest amongst us.
Oh, Lord.
So I am touched by what you said, Marissa, and I share that same commitment to the idea of people knowing they were put on this planet for a purpose, knowing that they're children of God, knowing that whether they realize it or not, they belong to the kingdom of heaven of a loving God who wants to affirm them, and that they're meant to live in community together. And so you and I have joined arms to dedicate ourselves to try to address that. And so I am touched by your witness on that subject. I think about two things further. One is what Jeff talked about a couple of days ago, and the garden going to the ultimately the city of God in heaven, and the dimension to which here on earth we can actually achieve portions of that. And I know every time I talk about these types of things, I feel a little Pollyannish, imagining how these things happen worldwide and or even nationwide. But that said, the best societies, with all their limitations, whatever they might be, create some normative structures where fundamental principles are respected. One, it's that there is things that are truth. It's not like a constant debate about even normal facts, which is where, unfortunately, we've got the trust breakdown in our society right now. Nobody can even agree on common facts of whether the sky's blue and the grass is green. And it just tears our souls apart with a dissonance every day. Two, that we are all children of God, or if you don't like to use religious speak, we're all equal in the Republic. And that means that we're all to be respected in that regard. And how I think about that being framed is, and I know I'm running long here, so forgive me. But,
no, keep going.
So
that's where all the revival happens. That's where people get saved.
It's in the second half hour of the 30-minute show.
Exactly.
Thanks for bearing with us out there, folks. There's a great thinker, the greatest conservative thinker of all time, and conservatives got a really bad name right now, and with really good reason, folks. I could do chapter and verse on why conservative is not a good name these days with all that goes on, and it's messed up in that. But Edmund Burke was a great child of an Irish home. Grew up in a mixed religious family, Catholic and Protestant, was sent to a Quaker school, which is really unusual for those days, by the way. And he became, perhaps the greatest of all conservative thinkers, drawing on the line of Aristotle and all the greats into the day. And he talked about the fact that, the way to get there to this, building blocks to the kingdom of heaven, city of God that Jeff was talking about, a couple of days back, is what he called platoons of virtue. So the family, the community, the church, the synagogue, the mosque, that you can achieve those little slices of the city of God and the kingdom of heaven in these spaces. I can't, right where I sit in Lexington, Massachusetts, I can't achieve it in Washington State. I can't achieve it in California. I can't achieve it in Nigeria or Uganda. I have no direct power to do that. But maybe in the community that I'm in, or the people I love, back to Jeff's point, that I can create it there. And then maybe if we create the conditions in a society such that we can encourage those platoons of virtue to exist, then together we can create the building blocks. And Jeff put it so elegantly the other day. It was a wonderful picture. The garden, the fall, the city eventually we're going to be called to. We're all going to be together. And what Jeff said the other day was, can you be part of the building blocks, right? Can you be part of laying one brick, right? We're not called on to lay all the bricks or build all the buildings there, right? We're called on to just take that corner of our neighborhood and do that. So I know that's a really long answer, but that is the passion of my heart on this subject.
No, I love it.
I love
it.
That's good. I love that.
That is good. Jeff, you want to finish us off?
I was, but I have nothing more to say now. When someone takes all the goodness, then there's nothing left on the plate. So I'm just,
and especially when I quoted you liberally from
right.
a couple days.
Exactly. You said what I would say. No, that was great. I thought that was incredible and perfect last word.
Very good. Well, thank you, JK. Thank you guys for dreaming with me a little bit here. I think just to finish this off, I think it's really important that we come together, that we model for people out there and even for ourselves, that together, again, we can dream again, even in this time when it feels like things are crumbling around us. We can come together, we can envision, what healthy and a whole world would look like and our little place in it. So.
Well, I will wrap on that idea, Marisa. Just for everybody out there, I'll say personally, when I saw your discussion topic of the day in the Runner Show, when I hear you talk about it, I'm just I want to just lay down and take a nap. It's too overwhelming. What would a good world be? I'm like, okay, nap time, because it feels too big. But we can all break it down to what the part we're in, right? It's a sphere of influence you have. Who can you influence today? Where can you do that today? And I'll say this for myself that, Jeff Bethke and Calvin and Josh and Joel and Marisa and Dan, they model for that for me every day. And so they're meaningfully, building on this world that we're talking about right here. And so encourage you all out there in this terrible, terrible time. It's hard. The questions seem overwhelming. Mental health worldwide, the UN tells us, well, what am I doing mental health worldwide? Well, Well, what you can do is to show up and be there for the person. Love your neighbor. God didn't tell you to love the neighbor in, the other side of the planet you don't even know. He said love the neighbor that's right there, your family member, your sister, your brother, your father, your son, your mother, your best friend, your neighbor who you actually see but you don't even know yet. Be there for them. So, all right, enough of the big lofty topics. We need a little bit of film line of the day action to wrap up the big stuff. Are we going to Jeff, Marissa?
I think we are.
All right.
That's right. No, great choice today, Marissa. This is a great movie if you haven't seen it. Isn't it also like 9 hours long too? So get prepared for if you're about to watch it.
Almost everything he's in is like,
yeah, that is true.
Really long.
Like if this was a VHS movie back in the day, it would have been those ones that came in the double. You know what I mean? Like the Titanic where you had to, you remember that?
That's
the
right.
doubles. I was like, what are we doing right here?
Were you watching VHS, Jeff?
I mean, I don't know what that was. My mom had told me about it. You know?
Right.
No, I do remember the Blockbuster days. Those were when I was really young. I remember it was a huge treat to go to Blockbuster on the weekends and rent a movie. Oh, and then you would see the cover, and if it wasn't behind the cover, you get really sad because that, it was terrible. Like, there wasn't just an abundance of being able to get what you want, when you wanted, how you wanted, whenever you wanted. So sad. I'm glad it's 2020 now. But with that, without further ado, we alluded to it, didn't say the title, but yeah, the line today is from A Curious Case of Benjamin Button. Go ahead and roll the clip.
I hope you see things that startle you. I hope you feel things you never felt before. I hope you meet people with a different point of view. I hope you live a life you're proud of. If you find that you're not, I hope you have the strength to start all over again.
That's so good.
We can always start over.
Bringing it down, right? Bringing it down. Start over again if you. Woo! All right, there we go. Time to roll over to our musicians now. Dan Hazeltine and Sara and Sean, come on.
Nice to see you. Hello from Nashville. It is great to be here. I will say this. I was just communicating with a few folks about this whole idea of how do we kind of perpetuate this new sense of connection to our neighbors and stuff, and the idea of practicing generosity in all its possible forms came up as just a very also lofty but also very practical thing. What are the ways that we can kind of step in and just say, hey, you know what, I'm gonna be able to pour myself out and do something kind for the person that lives right next door to me, or the person that lives across the ocean from me. But what can I do to practice generosity? Always felt like a good question to ask. My guests today, incredibly generous people that have been willing to come on and be a part of this show today, and I'm so thankful for that. They've been part of just an incredible legacy of music and beauty in the world, from their own music, where most people know Sean and Sara from Nickel Creek, just the groundbreaking bluegrass trio that absolutely just spread the envelope wide open for what was really possible within the genre, made it very accessible for a lot of folks, and found a way to kind of connect it to a lot of other genres of music, whether that was punk or alternative rock or just things like that. Connecting now, I was trying to go through the litany of various iterations and bands that they are both a part of, but it was the Mutual Admiration Society. Sara certainly now, along with her work with I'm With Her, that many of us have really enjoyed. And the Watkins Family Hour, all of those groups just creating incredible music for all of us to listen to. They have been a part of various collaborations between the two of them. Artists like Glenn Phillips from Toad the Wet Sprocket, their partnership with Chris Thiele, Jackson Brown, Need to Breathe, the Decemberists. They've done a lot of work. They were part of the family around Prairie Home Companion. with the legendary Garrison Keillor, and it is just an incredible treat to have you, Sean and Sara, with us today. So thanks for being on the show. How are you doing out there?
We are doing good. Good to see you. Great to be a part of this.
Thank you for that very generous introduction.
Yeah, it's so nice.
Well, it's all true. So I'm grateful for you guys. The first question I ask every artist is, this is a season where a lot of artists are they're getting a chance to kind of spread their wings artistically, but others, the anxiety kind of takes over and it's not been a very creative season for them. Where do you guys fit on that spectrum? How are you doing in this crazy COVID season?
Relatively good, yeah.
Pretty good. We're lucky because we have been taking advantage of our siblingness and being able to play together.
Yeah, a lot of our friends are, musician friends are quarantined alone or with someone they can't make music with, and so that's been really great. Trying to look at the upsides, but it is when we went into this whole thing, I was thinking, oh man, I'm just gonna write songs all the time. I'm gonna have so many songs written. That hasn't really been the case. A few, but not as many as I was hoping for. That's just the general anxiety kind of occupying a lot of bandwidth or what, but we have been productive, and
what's been nice to work on it. This record that we just made, a Watkins Family Hour record called Brother Sister, and that was released during everyone's quarantine or isolation, and so we've been trying to be creative with ways that we can get the word out about that record and perform things off of it. We've actually started our own concert series on Zoom. Later today will be our second show of this first series of 4 concerts where we get guests to come on and play, that's been a nice thing to get to work on, and definitely has been keeping us busy.
Yeah, we did one last week, and it was just, there's just a few couple, I don't know, 200 or 300 people on there, but it felt so good to be playing for people and making music. It really makes us appreciate what we have as musicians.
Yes. Well, and you also find that the hard part is probably the interaction of response. Like when you're playing live music, and you guys know this better than most, is just that there is such value in the energy and the response from the audience, that kind of intimacy all together, and to now create music where you're online and the only real response you get is maybe from a chat line where people are throwing a few emojis at you. It's a very, very different thing. And I know that we all do hope to get back to some level where we can be out and playing, actually in front of people. So
it's not even there is the applause kind of that's the rhythm of performing. But it's not even like that I miss the adulations. I don't miss people going like, yeah, great job. I miss people being in a room together. That actual physical presence and energy of humans sharing the same space, agreeing to be at a place together, and that feeling. Like when I listen to live records right now, I've been listening to more live records than usual because that feeling, like hearing the applause of all those humans close together is something that is I don't know, it's emotional for me.
Yeah, it's good. If you need some help with that, though, there are apps that you can download. I've downloaded a couple in weaker moments that are, apps that have the sound effect of people cheering or all laughing together. And occasionally when I just need a little boost, I'll hit the button so that I get a little hit of that kind of affirmation, which, if you're on a stage, there's a good chance that at some point in your life, you recognize that an audience could fill a little bit of that void every once in a while, right? So I'm not saying that for you guys. I'm saying that for me. But it's good to see you guys. I'm so glad that you're on the show. I could talk with you guys all day because I have a million questions. But I know that the people out in the world want to hear you play a little bit of music, and I would love to hear something. So what do you guys have for us today?
Well, we've got a couple that we were thinking of doing. Do you have any preference?
I feel like we should just play Just Another Reason.
Okay. This is one of the first songs that we wrote. For this record, we wrote it all together. Other than the covers, it's all songs that Sarah and I worked on together. This is one of the first ones that sort of shaped the general vibe, sonic vibe of the album, and yeah, it's called Just Another Reason. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. What else would the lifeline thrown from a boat to stop you from drowning, to keep you afloat? Now it's a tether tied to a moor, keeping you ashore. All that you need, you gotta leave it behind. It's all burning down, it's just a matter of time. Once this fire was a vision you faced, now it's just another reason. Now it's just another reason to get away. Now it's just another reason to get away. There's a fire that's been burning since the day you arrived. Kept your world turning, and you kept it alive. I hope to uphold a line in the dirt, even when it hurts. All that you need, you gotta leave it behind. It's all burning down, it's just a matter of time. Once this fire was a vision of grace, now it's just another reason. Now it's just another reason to get away. Now it's just another reason to get away. One hand holds what it is that you want, the other is open what you forgot. It's just another reason to get away. One hand holds what it is that you want, it's just another reason to get away. The other is open what you forgot. It's just another reason to get away. One hand holds what it is that you want, it's just another reason to get away. The other is open to what you forgot. It's just another reason to get away. One hand holds what it is that you want, it's just another reason to get away. The other is open to what you forgot. It's just another reason to get away.
Amazing. Yeah.
Wow.
Awesome.
Amazing.
So
Sweet
good.
applause.
That's great. So you guys are so good together. I mean, you've been playing together for such a long time, and really out in public as Nickel Creek. That's when I first really discovered you guys. One of the things that I've loved about you and looking at your career and hearing a lot of the music you've put out is that you've been very masterful at collaboration. It feels like, some artists really have this bent towards the solitary creation. They work very well as that isolated soloist. But you guys kind of get to bounce back and forth. A lot of incredible collaborations, but then you also have solo projects that you're doing. How do you guys find, when does the light go on that you go, okay, I think it's time to work on a solo project versus the collaborative stuff? How do you find that space?
Well, for me, they kind of feed each other, and there's this a panic that I feel if I feel like I'm like that I have to do something, and it's really a luxury for us to be in a situation where there is room for us to do different projects. And once we decided to put Nickel Creek on the shelf, that was like the one gig that we all did. We spent all of our time that we possibly could on tour with that band. With the small exception, the reason that Watkins Family Hour started is because we needed another outlet, and so we would find, out of the 6 days that we would be home, we would book a gig at Largo to do a family hour that ended up being a monthly residency, and just because of the weird way that Nickel Creek was touring at the time.
Yeah, we were doing 3 weeks on, 1 week off. And so,
like all year round.
Yeah,
it's
year
like,
round.
so dumb.
And we still love whenever we get to play, Nickel Creek shows. And it was always fun, but it's a lot of the same thing, the same songs. And so when the opportunity came up for us to do a monthly show at Largo, the guy who runs it, Flanagan, said, play covers, play new songs, try out songs. Basically, it was like the opposite of everything we were doing in Nickel Creek, which was appealing. So I think that a lot of the collaborations come out of, not a reaction, but just a lot of the collaborations that we have done have come out of kind of joining, being a part of that scene at Largo, which is a music and comedy club.
I think it is a reaction. To me,
Yeah.
like when last time I did a solo record, the last thing that I wanted to do after touring that for a year and a half was do another solo record.
Yeah.
So as a reaction to that,
Yeah.
I was looking for a collaboration to do.
And so Sara did I'm With Her.
That's when I'm With Her happened, yeah. And then Sean was doing his record with the Bee Eaters and other projects. And when you get enough time by yourself, you want to see people. And then after a while of collaborating, there's a time as a reaction to that you want to just see where the road that you want to go leads. Yeah. And it's really nice luxury to get to pursue those different avenues.
Yeah, and also you just get tired of the sound of your own voice after a while.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, but what's great about you guys, I always find, is that there is always in certain collaborations, or when you kind of take maybe a slightly lesser role in a project, that your voice tends to become another thing entirely. But you guys always seem to, like, it's always recognizable when I hear you playing or singing on a project. You bring a uniqueness to each of the pieces that you've been a part of, and I think it's what, obviously it speaks to the uniqueness and credibility of what you are capable of, to be able to do so many different things, but then also to for everyone to go, oh yeah, that's Sean, or oh, that's Sara. We hear that. So you guys are so good at that. I was hoping you maybe would play us one more song.
Yeah.
Be up for that?
Yeah. This is one that we wrote. We started this song upstairs in my living room. Just kind of, it started from scratch, from nothing. It started from we were playing an old fiddle tune called Polly Put the Kettle On, and it sort of developed into a song. In the news at that time, there was a lot of stuff about immigration happening, and I mean, there always has been, but this was last spring, and we were thinking about the tradition within the folk and bluegrass, folk music in general. There's so many songs about people moving around, going to new places, leaving bad environments for a new environment, hope. And, a lot of those reference Old Testament. There's a ton of Old Testament, references with regard to immigration. So we decided to sort of try and do our own version of one of those kind of songs called Miles of Desert Sand. Oh, my sister, come and take my hand. We'll walk together to that promised land. All the pain we left behind us is greater than miles of desert sand. Greater than the miles.
So good.
Guys.
Amazing. So great. You guys, I'm just so grateful for you. You've done you've been a part of my world for a while now and have just inspired me greatly with your music and just the beautiful things that you put out into the world. So I am really grateful for you being on the show today with us. Parting wise, before we kind of wrap things up, tell us again about the show tonight. You guys have a live online show, right?
Yeah, it's our second. We're doing Thursdays. We're trying out this every Thursday this month. It's at 4 p.m. Pacific time, so 7 o'clock Eastern. And it's live on Zoom, and you can get tickets on our website, which is watkinsfamilyhour.com, and a portion of the proceeds will go to the Music Cares COVID-19 Relief Fund.
And our guests are the Warren Treaty, which is an incredible duo, and in Nashville these days, originally from the Midwest, from Michigan or Minnesota, and then Taylor Goldsmith from the band Dawes and Mandy Moore, and so they'll all each join in and play a song, and we'll get to hang out together, and it's going to be a good time.
Well, great. I hope people will check that out. Just go find them on Thursdays. Hopefully the next Thursday that you hear this, if you're on the podcast or if you're on live with us today, then check it out tonight. Guys, thanks so much for being a part of this with us. Keep making music, keep doing it. I'm so glad that you're quarantined together so you can keep putting out great stuff for us.
Thank you.
All right, y'all. Let's shoot this over to John back up in New England.
Thank you, Watkins Family Hour. That was fantastic. I am going to tell all my friends, and my family will be there at 7 o'clock East Coast tonight. That is magnificent. Thanks so much. And thank you for, how do you bring so much online energy, the music to be so full and intense and transporting through a live stream? Magnificent. Thanks so much. And to all of you out there around the country and around the world, we thank you for joining us on live stream or podcast or however you're joining us. We look forward to being with you tomorrow. And until then, we wish you God's blessings, reminding you that He loves you, He's got you, He's carrying you, and we love you too. We got you in our prayers.